because we were not prepared for war. You know, we had worked with Chomli, he knew me before, we had met in this Nakuru Wildlife Conservancy meeting, so he knew me.
And this was a classic case where the Attorney General, regardless of popular or public opinion, you'd have to make a decision.
And I felt so angry.
And immediately I had the first shot, I was like, KWS, 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 but he fired several other shots.
Mobilize our people, our community, and we shall move that farm. We are going to take it so that they can kill so many of us.
We had a meeting, a security meeting, and in that meeting we had talked about poaching.
Somebody tipped the police. They did not utilize the full 14 days. On the 9th day or thereabouts, together with Mr. Gumo in Nakuru, suddenly charged the man. They had 5 more days.
He was a man not known to many in the country until he gunned down a law enforcement agent on his farm. Tom Chomli, the son of a white settler, had initially been accused of killing a Kenya Wildlife Services ranger, but his trial turned into a dramatic circus weeks later. Tonight on Casefiles, the ranger's killing. By the time Thomas Patrick Chomli was leaving Committee Maximum Prison, having served a third of his manslaughter sentence, the public had not gotten over a killing linked to him 1 year earlier.
We want justice for the Sicina. We want justice for the Sicina. For the Sicina. For the Sicina. We want justice for the Sicina.
Among those who were not done with the grandson of Lord Delamere was the widow left behind by KWS Ranger Samson Ole Sisina, a man Tom had gunned down in controversial circumstances on the same ranch where he had killed stonemason Robert Njoya. Casefiles traced the widow of the slain ranger in a hilly village in Narok Town.
Watu wa nyumbani walikuwa wameshaelezewa, lakini mimi sikuwa nimepata habari. Sasa mimi nikakuja kufikia hapa njiani, nikaona ni kama kuna watu wengi hapa nyumbani. Sasa nikakuja tu, hata sikujua ni nini iliendelea. Sasa ndio nikakuja, ndio nikaambiwa, nikaona tu watu wamenishika.
The husband, according to the widow, had been killed while on a mission to track down suspected game meat poaching on a farm that would later become the focus of an intense standoff between the government and an angry public. It all started one afternoon in 2005. On the 19th of April 2005, 3 Kenya wildlife officials told a security meeting at their offices in Naivasha that they had come across information that several actors were involved in poaching of game meat. Soisambu Ranch, that is home to the white settler Lord Delamere, also came up for mention in the security meeting. Lilana Joge, Kenya Wildlife Service Senior Warden, was the one leading the undercover operation. Samson Ole Sisina was the driver and another male colleague. Samson and his colleague, Gusho Mamo, were armed. Lillian was not.
So when we reached Soisambu, we identified ourselves, but not as people from KWS, because we wanted to really know what is going on there. So we went and we said we wanted to meet the manager and we wanted to talk to him. So just when we were just inside the gate, a few meters from the gate, there is a vehicle that came, a vehicle with the open, which was open on the back. So this vehicle was carrying a buffalo.
Living buffalo, dead buffalo?
A dead, yeah. It was carrying a buffalo on the back, and there were people surrounding it on the same vehicle at the back. So when they passed us, we wondered, is this a live buffalo? Because you can't be close to a live buffalo. It's very dangerous. So we were wondering, how come this buffalo is being carried on its legs standing and it's alive? So we said, no, let us follow this vehicle.
Suspecting something was not adding up, the team driving an unmarked vehicle trailed the truck until it made its way to a slaughterhouse on the expansive 50,000-acre piece of land.
It is when we realized that this was not just, something was unusual about it. So the issue that we wanted to confirm about bushmeat poaching now became real. So we said that, what do we do now? So I contacted my superior who was in Nairobi, and I asked him, what do we do? These people are carrying a buffalo, and we suspect that is a buffalo that has been poached. So he told me, Lillian, what do we do? So I told him, there's a team that always assists me in terms of backup, but it's in Naivasha. So he told me, okay, you appreciate, and then call them. So I called them. And that time, the leader of the team was called Mr. Kinyanjui. He had assisted me in other operations. All the people were working in the slaughterhouse. So we told them not to communicate. They just relax. We didn't like harass anyone. We just told them relax, leave anything you're doing. Our interest was on the buffalo because we didn't want them to slaughter it and do all those things.
Shortly, Lillian says she saw a man she had known for some time approach them. Lillian says the man was not alone.
I saw Chomli coming and another man behind him. And all of them were carrying rifles, but Chomli was in front. So when he came, instinctively, I just entered because I was just at the door. So I just entered and I entered and I left Sisina there. So I told him, Chomli is coming. So instinctively, because I didn't have any firearm, it was them that I depended on. So I entered, but it was coming very fast.
What transpired outside the slaughterhouse has been a contested event for the last 9 years now. Lillian says she did not see what had happened, but heard what would be the last of Samson Ole Sisina.
We had shots from outside. So these shots that we had, we were just shouting, KWS, KWS, because now our cover was blown. We had to like say we are people from KWS, yeah, but he just came shooting. He shot several shots. Some of them, I think, at very close range, because when I saw him, he was just a few meters from the slaughterhouse. So immediately we said we are people from KWS, but apparently he came shooting.
Lillian says after the gun went silent, Chomli stormed the slaughterhouse with his rifle.
Then he looked very confused, as if he wanted to shoot us. And then we were busy giving our identification, throwing to him our identification. He was telling us, throw them there. Everything we had, we threw them.
The workers that Chomli would later claim he had come to rescue turned on the KWS personnel.
He ordered his men to beat us and to rough us up. So we were beaten, but apparently, I think it was God's will, because these people were beating us with pangas and, all those funny weapons. And apparently there was an old man who had worked for KWS. So he had some, I don't know what he had, but he didn't want these people to beat me. So when somebody was trying to raise a panga, he was like, no. So I was not really quite beaten as the corporal, but the corporal was beaten and his finger were cut. And it was bad.
By the time police arrived at the scene of the shooting, Samson Olesisina was a dead man. From the look of things, Chomli had killed an innocent man. Decision was made to have him arrested and locked up. The little-known grandson of Lord Deleme had become a focus of both local and international news. Nakuru town was playing host to one of the biggest news events in the world at the time, pitting the grandson of a prominent white settler against a poor African family. On the 28th of April 2005, Thomas Patrick Chomli was arraigned before a Nakuru court to face charges of killing the KWS ranger Samuel Olesisina. The prosecution was applying a holding charge, a procedure that will allow them to complete investigations. Philip Murgo was at the time the director of public prosecutions.
It was highlighted in the media. A complaint was received by the Honorable Attorney General about how the investigations were being conducted. And through me, the Attorney General asked me to inform the State Counsel in Nakuru, Mr. Gumo, that this matter should not proceed to court until he has had the benefit of reading the file himself, the Attorney General.
That should have been the procedure, but the law allows the prosecution to arraign a murder suspect in court on a holding charge until investigations are complete. The trial of Patrick Thomas Chomli was now set for rocky waters. Unknown to the public, heated exchange of letters between the Attorney General's office and the state prosecutor in Nakuru was threatening Chomli's murder trial. The murder file was not ready, but the file had contained crucial information that could have allowed the prosecution more time to have it ready as the trial of Thomas Chomli continued. But according to Philip Murgo, police had done a shoddy job.
The Attorney General at the time, Amos Wako, found that very unusual because he had received a specific complaint about what was afoot, that there might have been other considerations afoot other than investigating and prosecuting a crime. I remember, and though it's many years, I remember that a police officer called Kiragu, OCPD Naivasha, made a statement in the media 2 days after the incident that the suspect in custody, who was then Mr. Chomli, would be charged for murder. When the file reached the Attorney General, not a single statement had been recorded in those 2 days. So how did he come to that conclusion? So what am I saying? It looked like a clear case where a decision to take a certain step is being made before the evidence has been gathered.
According to Philip Murgo, police investigators had enough time to compile their evidence before arraigning Chomli in court, but accordingly, the AG's office had time to direct that further evidence should be included in the file. The Thomas Chomli murder file was placed before the Attorney General, Amos Wako, on the first week of May 2005. This was 9 days after Chomli was formally charged before a Nakuru court. The Attorney General had 3 weeks to direct the prosecution to have the file properly constituted, but he did not. Instead, he tore through the evidence placed before him and tended to believe the evidence of the accused person. While reprimanding the prosecutor, the AG, in a letter directing that the Chomli murder trial be terminated, relied on the evidence of Thomas Davies, who was in the company of Chomli on the day Olesisina was shot dead. Tom Dems had told police investigators that Chomli was running ahead of him as he followed him from a distance of about 20 meters. Dems claimed he saw a man at the corner of a building holding a gun but partially concealed behind a wall. Tom said he had a shot fired before Chomli fired back. Police investigators had told the Attorney General Tom Dems was also armed and did not fire at Olesisina, implying there was no danger to warrant Chomli to open fire on the KWS ranger. On his part, Chomli told the police after they had concluded he was not a victim of robbery gone wrong that he shot Samson Olesisina in the firm belief that the KWS ranger was a robber. Chomli told the police he was remorseful that he had killed Samson Olesisina, but did Samson Ole Sisina pose any danger to Chomli to warrant him to shoot him dead?
Not at all. Not at all. From the statements we saw, there was no time. He went round the remember, he's been told there's a robbery at the slaughterhouse. That's according to the evidence. He comes down from a distance. He sees 2-3 suspicious characters standing guard over his workers. He can't recognize any of them. He looks at the motor vehicle. It's not familiar. So as he is circling the slaughterhouse, obviously with an intention of rescuing his workers, he comes across a gentleman in a crouched position, or like this, pointing a gun in his direction. And before they could exchange anything, the person fired. And he fired back. That is the evidence on file.
He closed the door. He closed all doors. That's why hata tungetoka tuchungulie uone ati mwenzako ameuliwaje, alifunga milango zote. So kufunga milango zote ndio akashoot Sisina, si tukapata tu Sisina ashakufa. But that's why hata Sisina hakurudi ndani. He came very fast. Sisina akifikiria huyu bado ni mtu tu ataongea na sisi, because alikuwa anakuja Naivasha, hata Sisina na nani anamjua, Sisina anamjua.
By the time the trial of Tom Chomli was coming up for mentioning, a decision had already been made by the Attorney General to terminate the murder charges against the rancher. Lila Najoga, who survived the shooting, says she told the police she saw Chomli running towards the slaughterhouse with a gun raised at a firing position. According to Lillian, she saw the lifeless body moments after police officers arrived at the scene of the shooting and identified them as KWS personnel.
What I saw was a dead body, and he was shot somewhere close to the throat, somewhere at the throat. And people were saying what we could see was somebody was really shot at close range, because when you shoot at close range, what happens is that the bullet passes and it leaves a very huge opening.
So where was the opening? At the back or here?
He was shot at the back. So when he was shot at the back, I think, somewhere here, I can't remember very well, but he was shot at the back. From what we were talking there and what we were seeing, he was shot at the back. Then the bullet came from in the front. Yes.
Casefiles has not obtained a post-mortem report of the slain KWS ranger.
Sisina's gun was fired. So, you know, there is an independent bit of evidence. Sisina's gun had a fired shot or two. I don't remember if it was one or two, but it certainly was one. In other words, there is independent evidence that he fired a shot from the forensics.
We are not prepared for war. That's why no one really fired. Even the corporal that I had, he had the pistol, but I told him, you don't fire any of those ammunition, because it's not like we are going to arrest an enemy or we are dealing with bandits. No. Even Chomli had called some police from, I can't remember the station, around there. So when these policemen came, he had told them we were robbers, we were armed robbers, and he had described us. And so when these people came, the first perception they had is that we were robbers. But when they came, they found everything was down, even the pistol was down on the ground. They told another lady to tie me with some sisal. And then for the corporal, I think they put some handcuff on him. And when now our response team came, the backup team came, and there was a senior officer from Lake Nakuru who also came very fast to that place. It's when now the police realized that these are not bad people. And they later apologized to us, but it was after roughing us, but they didn't beat us then. Yes, the one who beat us were the Chomli staff.
Indeed, by the time the Attorney General was penning a letter directing a Nakuru prosecutor to terminate the murder charge against Chomli, the file placed before the AG did not contain a ballistic report from a firearms examiner. How then did the AG reach a conclusion that Ole Sisina had fired at Chomli? Indeed, no witness mentions whether Ole Sisina tried to identify himself to an armed Chomli who was running towards him. This raising serious concerns. Why Ole Sisina decided to fire at Chomli instead of informing him that he was a KWS ranger. In a letter forwarding the murder file with the Attorney General for directions, a senior investigations officer told the AG Chomli had charged Atole Sisina, shouting at him, "Who is KWS? Who sent you here?" while firing at least 4 bullets at the deceased. Ole Sisina's body was 61 meters from the slaughterhouse, an indication that he had tried to flee the scene of the shooting. With what the family of the slain KWS Ranger had believed was a murder of their loved one, the prosecution of Thomas Patrick Chomli would later come to an abrupt end. On the 17th of May 2005, a day before Chomli was due in court the following morning, an assistant public prosecutor, PM Mugo, received a letter from Philip Murgo directing to terminate the murder trial. On the 18th of May 2005, before Justice Muga Pondi, the Attorney General entered a nolle prosequi. Thomas Patrick Chomli, despite admitting gunning down a law enforcement agent, walked to freedom. The case could not be pursued any further. The trial judge, however, conceded that he had not seen the evidence placed before the Attorney General by the time he was asking the court to have the case terminated.
The AG, through me, had instructed Mr. Gumo not to prefer the charge until the file was properly compiled and forwarded to his office. He had defied that instruction. So the Attorney General, in his wisdom, said, "We have an officer who is not acting according to instructions, which he should. You had better go and do it yourself," which is precisely what I did. It was nothing personal, nothing peculiar. I didn't know any of the parties to the matter, but it was a matter where the Attorney General felt concerned that his instructions had already been disobeyed by the officer on the ground.
According to the family, it was also unfortunate that the state appears to have rushed to terminate the murder trial at the expense of justice.
Tom Chomli was further away and said there is a robbery at the slaughterhouse. So the reaction of Tom Chomli to the whole incident was that of a ranch owner coming to the rescue of his workers who were victims of a robbery. And there is no evidence to the contrary. So it had a tragic consequence. It's unfortunate. The Attorney General didn't say clearly who was right and who was wrong. All he said was there was insufficient evidence to support a charge of murder. On the face of it, it is unclear. There's an element of self-defense, an element of mistaken identity.
The family will later suffer a major blow in their quest to have one last shot at seeking justice. A ruling by a court in Nairobi dashed their hopes to compel the government to set up a public inquest into the murder of Samson Ole Sisina.
Hii ni kesi ambayo ni wazi ya kwamba ni kweli aliuawa na lazima tujue haki.
Mungu tu alikufa akaachwa hivi. Hata si kama mtu alikuwa amekufia kazini akifanyia serikali kazi. Sasa ni kama ameenda tu hivi, hata si kama raia. Hata raia wenyewe wanauliza ni nini. Lakini yeye alikufa akijitolea kufanyia serikali kazi. Mbona serikali wasinihurumia na watoto waone hata yeye alikuwa mtu yao, na hata wangetaka hata watoto yake wasome ama wafanye kazi nzuri baadaye.
With that, Thomas Patrick Chomli is an innocent man, a man vindicated by the same law that had him arrested, becoming the first murder suspect, admitting to have killed to walk to freedom after exactly 1 month behind bars. 1 year later, Chomli shot and killed a stonemason on the same farm he had killed the Kenya Wildlife Services Ranger, Samson Ole Sisina. He was jailed and only served 5 months in prison. The ranger's killing is now a file that is officially closed. I'm Dennis Onsarigo. Good evening.